Hello and welcome to the Arsenal Ramble, where today we're going to be getting our teeth stuck into the FA Cup fourth round clash against Man City. As always, I'm joined by my co-rambler Dom. How are you, mate? Are you good?
Well, I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but I've actually been feeling quite poorly over the last few days, and it's been a bit of a struggle. I've been suffering with man flu. They tend to say that it's from high testosterone levels in the body or something like that. So I'm surviving, but we're podcasting now. And how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. Yeah, you must be a very masculine man. That's all it is. You just got super high levels of testosterone. You're just a very manly man. But yeah, I'm good. I was at the Etihad on Friday, so that's why we're a little bit later than normal with the podcast. So just getting out of Manchester and whatnot. Plus, I thought I'd go out for a few drinks afterwards. Obviously, when in Manchester, why not? So yeah, that's why we're a little bit later than normal. But yeah, I'm really good, mate. I'm really good.
Good.
Should we get right into the game and talk about maybe the team sheet? Because that was the big topic of discussion, wasn't it? Whether Arteta was going to rotate really heavily or was he going to add a few in and keep the team strong? Like, what were your thoughts on the team sheet initially?
To be honest, I genuinely wanted Mikel Arteta to go quite strong in this game, just because I felt like before the match happened, I felt like we've not played Man City yet this season, and it was the perfect opportunity to have like a dress rehearsal really for the league. So I felt like, obviously taking into account that we should be trying to win this competition as well, I felt like it would be a great opportunity for us to field our best 11 and, work out anywhere we might be vulnerable or anywhere we can expose some of their vulnerabilities. So, yeah, I thought we should have gone strong in this game. So I was a little bit disappointed when I saw the likes of Rob Holding in the starting lineup. I know he needs to get minutes. Same with Tierney and Turner, but and you could also argue where else would they get minutes? But I was hoping for a little bit of a stronger starting lineup, to be honest. What about you?
Yeah, well, I know what you mean. Like maybe a few bigger players in certain positions, but like you say, like Turner had a really good World Cup, so he deserves to be able to show that in an Arsenal shirt, I imagine. But I was happy to see Trossard on the team sheet, I must admit. Martinelli, as we've discussed in some previous podcasts, his form has slightly dipped, I would say. That's natural, though. He's a very young player. It's going to happen. But maybe this competition for places is going to invigorate him back into life. And we'll obviously come back to that a little bit later in the pod because he does come on in this game. And yeah, so I was happy to see Trossard in there. Saka, of all the players in the team, I think Saka and maybe Gabriel at the back are probably the two that, if we were going to rotate, it maybe would have been them because they've just played game after game after game. Saka as well, obviously a big World Cup, playing the majority of minutes. So I was hoping that we could somehow get him rested. But we just haven't really got the options on the right, have we? Like, I was thinking, could we maybe get Trossard out there? But it's not a position that he played a lot for Brighton, is it?
No, I completely agree. And I was actually really happy to see Trossard make his first start because he's definitely good enough to be starting in these games. So I wasn't really bothered about that. And as you say, he could have maybe started on the right side of Saka because he's had so many minutes this season and he's had lumps kicked out of him all the time. But I do think there was something in that with starting Trossard instead of Martinelli, just because of how Martinelli's form has dipped recently. Maybe just a little sign from Arteta to say that if you don't start picking up your form, then, we've got other options. But circling back to what I was saying about the starting lineup, the only real worry that I had about having Rob Holding at the back is because he was literally going to be going up against the Norwegian Terminator that's Erling Haaland. And it's a bit of a tough ask to have a player come into the team that's not started, not really played too much apart from sealing out the end of games for the last 15, 20 minutes. He's not started a game really for Arsenal for months, to then be thrown in against what is, it's the second best team in England at the minute, but I mean, they've got the players to potentially be the best and one of the best strikers in the world. To chuck him in there, I thought it was a bit it was a bit harsh and asking a lot of Rob Holding. But yeah, that was the only real place I felt like we were starting on a bad foot. Turner is definitely more than competent to be able to goal keep well, and Tierney can always do a decent job as well. Same with Trossard. But yeah, that's the only place where I felt like it was a real vulnerability from Arteta and the starting lineup. And but yeah, I know what you're saying about Saka, but no, there really isn't anybody who can jump in for him. And I think that's something that we were trying to look for in the January transfer window, and we're getting this winger in. But even that being said, when we were looking at Mudryk, he is predominantly left-sided as well. So I feel like maybe Arteta, I don't know if he's overlooking it or he just genuinely feels like Saka's indestructible and can play every second of every game.
Yeah. I mean, we've got Nelson, obviously, that would normally potentially be able to come on, but obviously he's injured. We've got Marquinhos, but he's just not quite at the level, I don't think, yet. We've got players like Pepe out on loan. So it is an area of our squad that I think is going to need reinvestment at some point. He needs competition for places, doesn't he? He needs that drive to keep wanting to perform at the highest level, but it's no surprise to me that he had a quiet game, because I don't know what it looked like for you watching on telly, but watching in the stadium, he just looked knackered. He just looked absolutely shattered. And again, it's no surprise with the display that he put in against Man United. Yeah,
that is true. And also going up against a defence like Man City, they're gonna almost try and double up on you, aren't they? Especially with Saka's quality. So they really did tend to nullify him. And as you said, he did look knackered. And I think a lot of that was to do with the fact that he wasn't dovetailing with his usual partner of Martin Odegaard, just to say, because I really feel like the partnership between Fabio Vieira and Saka, whenever it's fielded, it just doesn't quite click right. And there's sometimes the odd mishit pass to Saka, or it doesn't quite go into his stride the way that he would like, or Vieira might make the wrong decision. And you can see that builds frustration in Saka, and it makes him stop wanting to make these runs in behind, and he stops trying to probe behind defences, and that is Saka's real threat, because he's a constant threat. Whereas when he's getting frustrated with his own teammates, then he's not going to want to do that. But but before we get into the actual match itself, I just wanted to ask you, because obviously you're used to going to the Emirates and seeing how the atmosphere has developed over the last few seasons. You're actually behind enemy lines on Friday night. You were in the home end because that's where you managed to get a ticket. Now, what was the atmosphere like at the Etihad? Like, was it as quiet and as lackluster as people make it out to be, or is that a bit deceiving?
No, it was even quieter than I thought it would be. The fans around me barely even got up to celebrate their own goal. It was crazy. I went to the game with my brother. Neither of us are obviously Man City associated with Man City. That's just how we managed to get tickets. It's really tough to get away tickets, but the away fans for Arsenal were brilliant. And I don't know whether that had a bit of something to do with it, because they just shut up the Etihad. They were amazing. And I was going to ask you the reverse question. You know, what was it like listening to it on TV? Was it super obvious our away fans were 10 times louder, or was it, or did City seem to, were the fans for City in it? I couldn't quite tell. Obviously, being in the stadium, what did it sound like on telly?
So on the TV coverage, it was super obvious, but you never know when you're watching it on the TV where like they might have microphones that are near the away fans or whatever like that. But literally from start to finish, the whole game, all you could hear was the Arsenal fans cheering. Even after we'd actually conceded in the game, you then, from the restart, you hear the Arsenal fans chanting Mikel Arteta's name. So it's like, you don't actually hear the Man City fans chanting at all for the whole game. I don't think they've even got any chance, have they? Like, they've not really got any, which just shows how far we've come as a fan base, really, to be supporting our team, that we've got pretty much chance for every player now. Which is going to galvanise that player, and even the manager and the fans. We've got our own chants about each other. Like, it's crazy that we're going to build and whip up this atmosphere every single game we go to, and even these empty, soulless grounds like the Etihad. It's amazing that we can bring the party there, and unfortunately in this game it didn't translate on the pitch as we thought it might have done in terms of a result, but we certainly made a decent performance, and especially in the first half, Trossard, right at the start of the first half, looked like an enigma, really, didn't he? He was prodding, he was probing, he did some good work down the left, and he actually pulled a decent ball back to Tomiyasu I'm not sure why he was in this position on the edge of the box, but you probably want that to fall to Nketiah or someone, but it falls to Tomiyasu, who has a decent shot, to be fair, but it's straight at the keeper, and they make a smart save. Now, were you impressed with Trossard's involvement in at the start of the first half?
Oh, massively. He was quite clearly the spark for Arsenal in that first half. Everything was going through him on the left. He just had that little Santi Cazorla sort of style to him. He was hard to get the ball off, and he would drive at the penalty area to then make it even more risky for the defender to go in, because they ain't going to want to give away a penalty. I think they had to readjust their back line slightly with John Stones, because he was putting him on his ass a lot of the time. And like you say, he dug out that really nice. It was like an orthodox cross, wasn't it? It sort of just bypassed everybody into the box, bounced towards Tomiyasu, and he's essentially half volleyed it. I think he's done. It was a tough ball to get on target, never mind score from. So I think he'd done well to generate that much power and get it on target. But yeah, it was a smart save. It was just unfortunately we didn't have too many of those big chances in the first half, and those were the ones that we really needed to capitalise on. But yeah, it was certainly all coming through Trossard. Yeah.
Yeah, and, well, talking about some smart work from Trossard, he actually managed to turn inside out and snap John Stones' hamstring, which I know you never want to wish an injury on a player, but he's been integral to Man City's defence this season, and a hamstring's going to put him out for a good few weeks. So, if there's any consolation from this game, then maybe Man City's defence has been weakened a little bit from a bit of Trossard magic. But going on to a bit further on into the first half, with my worries pre-game about the selection of Rob Holding, it did seem like every single time him and Haaland were getting into a bit of a tussle, Haaland was coming out on top, and I was having flashbacks to away at Spurs last season, where he was trying to manhandle him a bit too much, and then he eventually got himself a yellow card, and I thought, oh God, here we go. This is going to be a red for Holding, and then it's going to be a disaster class. So, he got that yellow card, and every single time, if there is a positive, every single time the ball got played in behind and he managed to beat Holding, Turner was really alert and he had a really good starting position, and he managed to clear the ball. I think it was a good 3 or 4 times he came out and cleared the ball from Haaland, who was beating Holding. So that's always a positive to see, that Turner's alert and he's on his toes.
Yeah, you could tell that was purposeful. I think they knew that was one of their main sort of offensive strategies, is to get it to Haaland and knock on the ball and go through, and Turner was equal to that. So, but I've seen Holding getting a lot of stick for this game, and I feel obliged to defend him a little bit. Don't get me wrong, Holding is not someone I want to see start for Arsenal week in, week out. He's not at the level 100%. Saliba and Gabriel miles ahead. But I didn't think he did too bad, especially on the physical side. It wasn't just Holding grabbing hold of Haaland's shirt. It was vice versa as well. They both went toe-to-toe. And I don't think you could say Holding came off worse physically. Yes, he got beaten, stuff like that. But, this is one of the world's best number 9s, and against one of our weakest squad players. I think he did okay. I just feel like I need to defend him slightly in that respect, because I've seen a lot of people slating him, but he's never going to be starting games for Arsenal. We don't, I think for him to come in, like you say, probably one of his first starts since that Tottenham game that really meant something, so in the back of his mind, he's probably still a little bit scarred from that Tottenham performance where he got sent off, and I thought he did all right. Yeah, don't get me wrong. One of the weakest performance in the team, but still happy with what he contributed.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe the perception of Holding might have been moulded from people that have watched it on the telly then, maybe, because
I think so.
It might have been the commentary, because they were really beating him up to say like he was struggling with Haaland, and where they start to say, oh, he's really having a bad day, isn't he, Holding? And he's got a yellow card already, so he's going to be on eggshells the rest of the game. But from what I could see, that was not influenced by that, was the sheer difference in quality in terms of pace. Really, we're so used to Saliba motoring towards the ball, and he's also got all the physical attributes that Holding's got, but Saliba is so much quicker. He eats up the ground with his big strides, but you could tell whenever the ball was knocked through to Haaland, he would have the run on Holding quite easily. So that was one thing which was worrying from the start. But yeah, I do agree. He did all right, but I think it was a good idea for him to get changed at half time, because he was. It would have been too much of a risk to have Rob Holding on a yellow card versus Erling Haaland. But
100%.
We did have quite a few sloppy passes in the first half, which isn't usual of Arsenal. I don't know if that was maybe Man City doing well to counter press and cut it out, but I think it was players like Tomiyasu who was just. Tomiyasu and Vieira, sorry, they just didn't quite make the passes. I don't know if that's just rustiness because they've not played for a long time, or I'm not sure what it is.
I honestly, I think it's to do with Vieira. He's not in the positions that we need him to be in. We really need to figure out how to get him into the game more. If you watch Odegaard week in, week out, he's always there. He's leading the press. He's always available for the pass. You remember that assist that amazing assist where he just sort of bent it in his own half for Martinelli, and he probably should have squared it, but he popped it away. Remember that assist? He's always there. He's always getting into space, always wanting the ball. Vieira is almost the opposite. He hides away from it at times. That was something I really noticed. And even my brother, a neutral, he said, who's that guy? He's just not in the game. So I'm starting to get a little bit worried, with Vieira. I don't want to get on his back too much, but we need to figure out a way of how to utilise his strengths. Utilise his strengths more, because at the minute I'm not seeing the comparisons to Odegaard that that we need to be seeing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it just shows you the qualities of Odegaard when he's not in the team. It shows you how important he is to our whole setup. Just because, whenever we've got the ball, Odegaard is demanding the ball from every player that's around him. He's saying, "Give me the ball, and I'll make something happen." And when we've not got the ball, he's demanding that all the players are chasing and pressing, and he's hounding and harrying every player. But with Vieira, he kind of shies away from getting the ball, and when he gets the ball, he then tries too hard to make a pass or make something happen. But if he's trying to force it sometimes, when sometimes it's better just to rotate the ball and recycle and get the ball and work it into the perfect area to then make the pass. And I don't really think it's a physicality thing, because Odegaard's not the biggest or strongest guy, really. He's quite good on his feet. He doesn't get pushed over. He didn't get pushed off the ball that much, but he's not massive. But he's got all of the know-how and technical quality to be able to be on the ball and control it and be able to pop off the pass with the right weight at the right time, and he makes the right decisions most of the time, Odegaard. But I do think that in that really important area of the pitch, attacking area of the pitch, we need to have someone like Odegaard. And unfortunately, Vieira's, in the last few times that I've watched Vieira, he's looked underwhelming. And the price tag that we had for him is starting to, it looked like a bargain at first when we got him, but now it's almost starting to look like we might have overpaid for this guy. So fingers crossed his form does really start to pick up. Yeah.
When you saw those goals and assists that he had for was it Porto? I think it was Porto. And you start to think, bloody hell, if you can replicate half of that in an Arsenal shirt, then we're laughing. But I'm just not seeing any creative spark from him. It's disappointing to see. They're not getting huge minutes as it is, our squad players, partly because I don't think Arteta fully trusts them. We'll get onto it a little bit later, but there's also the same that could be said about Lokonga. This should be a game that you'd think maybe would be built for Lokonga. He's 23 years old now. He's getting to that age where you need to start performing, or we're looking like we're going to have to get rid of you, because 23's, yes, it's young, but you should have sort of been. You should be showing your ability by now. So. It's these players that need to really take their chances and perform in these games, because they're not going to get it week in, week out in the Premier League. And if they do, it's going to be for 10, 15 minutes at the end of a game where it's going to be difficult to show it. We've seen it with Nketiah. He really struggled to show his ability in these little cameos that he had in the Premier League. He's now had, the back end of last season, he had a big chunk of games, showed really promising ability, scored tons of goals. He's now getting it now again. And he's the best thing since sliced bread again, because he's scoring, he's getting minutes, and he's taking his chance. I just really hope that they can turn this around. But we'll obviously get into Lokonga a bit more in the second half when he comes on. But before we do that, should we talk about the substitutions that we made at halftime? So we had Holding go off for Saliba, as we've discussed or touched on previously. This is clearly a tactical one, isn't it? Like, he's on a yellow card. We need to get Saliba in. He's got more control. He's better out at playing out at the back. So that one kind of speaks for itself. So, but with the Partey substitution, were you worried with this injury? I think we're out the clear now, as in we've had confirmation that it's not as serious as first thought. But were you panicking a little bit when Partey went off?
Absolutely, because you see the drop off in quality even in this game as like a microcosm of our season last season. When Partey's not on the pitch and we have the alternative, who in this game was Lokonga, we really do have a drop-off in quality, a massive drop-off in quality. And it was so worrying to see him go off injured because of, his recent injury history in an Arsenal shirt. He tends to have months out of the team. So, and his rehab usually takes a while, and then he gets back into the team and then gets injured again. And that's what we really could do without for the last few months of the season. So, yeah, in fact, I would go as far as saying Partey has probably been one of our top 3 most important players this season in terms of getting us to the position that we're in. And I would say he's as integral as if he's not in the team for the remainder of the season, then we can just kiss the title goodbye. So, yeah, every Arsenal fan is going to be panicking when they see him down injured. But what you said about Saliba as well, yeah, it was a smart decision from Arteta to bring him on for Rob Holding because of, how Haaland was starting to get the better of him and he had a yellow card. And also everyone pre-match, everyone wanted to see Saliba versus Haaland. Everyone wanted to know what was going to happen there and who was going to outmuscle who or whatever. So it's good that he's had a bit of experience with defending Haaland before we go into the league fixture, which I'm sure Saliba will be starting that game.
I hope so, because he did. It was, like you say, it's like one of the world's best young centre-backs versus one of the world's best young forwards. So, yeah, it was a little clash in that respect. And Saliba clearly did show the gulf in class between him and Holding, no doubt about that. But, yeah, it's just his calmness and the way he just keeps the ball flowing and his ability to play out from the back. It's integral, especially with the way Arteta wants to play. It's it's key to his philosophy, and you can't help but think. I wonder if it had been slightly different if Saliba would have been on from the start. But this is the conundrum that he's got.
Yeah, or what I was going to say is what felt quite unfortunate, really, is the fact that we had all the progressiveness of Partey in the first half, but the lack of progressiveness from Holding. And then it kind of flips when you made those substitutions. So then you had Saliba, who was progressive and calm on the ball, and he's kind of press resistant and he's able to play it out. But then he had Lokonga to go to, who is more of a side to side El Neni type, and he doesn't really make those killer forward passes. So I wish we had a 10 to 15 minute spell with both Saliba and Partey in that kind of right side of the middle of the park, because that would have been interesting to see if we could actually formulate and develop some more attacking threat. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And you really did notice a drop off in our midfield when Lokonga came on. It's not even his individual performance which is disappointing. It's the fact that it looks like he doesn't really gel with the other players around him. His partnership with Xhaka is lacking. It's not as great as Partey and Xhaka, and you can tell that players don't really trust him like they would Partey. They don't trust him to get the ball on the turn and maybe spin a player. They know when they pass him the ball, say if Saliba was to pass Lokonga the ball, then he's going to get it straight back. So more often than not, he's reluctant to pass to him, and he's going to try and force it out wide, and then we're going to go into that horseshoe of doom. So it's not really what you want to see from a young lad. You want to see a bit more bravery, really, on the ball to try and emulate things that Thomas Partey could do. But it was interesting as well, because there was a clip go around online of when you're talking about Nketiah and Lokonga and their different perspectives, and it was of our All or Nothing series, and they were sat at the table having lunch, and they're basically asking Lokonga, like, how you doing? You seem quite sad recently. And he's like, well, I just feel down because I was playing and I'm not playing anymore. And then Nketiah, with his mentality, he goes, you think you're the only player that's not playing? It says a few expletives as well, but I'm not going to say them. So you think you're the only player that's not playing, when you do play, you've got to take your chance, that kind of thing. And it just shows you that Nketiah, he's happy, he was on the bench, and then when he did play, he's played well, and he's taken his opportunity, and it's like Gabriel Jesus is just having a holiday, and he's going to come back, and it won't even be like we've missed him. So, that's the difference in mentality, and that's the sort of mentality we need in our squad.
100%, yeah. And he could have easily have gone to another club with his contract expiring. He could have easily gone to a Palace or somewhere like that and probably be banging in goals from the starting lineup week in, week out. But he chose to fight for his place at Arsenal, and because he believed in himself, and you just don't see that in Lokonga. But I'm intrigued to know your thoughts on the actual goal that City scored. So it's sort of initially a great effort by Alvarez that sort of ricochets off the post, scrambles about a little bit, eventually comes through to Ake down on the left, which is not someone you'd really associate with a nice finesse shot, but he seems to bend it round into the far post side netting and scores. Now, a lot of people have been criticising Lokonga's positioning for this goal. Now, obviously, in the stadium, when I'm watching it there and then, I'm not really focused on his positional or his positioning, I should say. So, but I've obviously seen the replay since, and he is sort of in no man's land almost. He's sort of sidestepping one way, sidestepping another. Really should be closing that gap down, not allowing Ake to come on his right. But as I just said, Ake is not normally the sort of player you'd associate with that sort of ability. So do you associate a little bit of blame towards Lokonga's positioning there? Or do you think it's just a great goal that, we have to accept that, wasn't a lot we could do about it?
A bit of both, really. Lokonga could have maybe had a little bit of a better position to be able to cover that angle, because realistically, from that position, that's the only way that Ake can score, because everything else is covered by Turner. And I think there's a second player there as well that's potentially covering the near post. So that is the only way that Ake is able to score that goal. But that being said, it is an absolutely wonderful finish, and you don't expect a player who's a defensive player and who doesn't normally, show that striking ability. You don't expect that from him. So you can understand why it's taken our team by surprise. And if anything, you've just got to give full credit to Nathan Ake, because it is a wonderful finish. And if it was one of our players, for example, if it was like Kieran Tierney who had scored that, you'd be like, wow, like you would not expect him to have scored that goal. So I guess you've got to give him credit, and maybe it's a little bit harsh on Lokonga saying like, oh, well, if you were here, then you would have blocked it. But because, he is in the right area to be able to defend him from like stopping him from running towards the goal or making a pass, just maybe not the shot. But you would hope from that angle that Ake wouldn't be bending that into the bottom right hand corner, and then you feel like if it curls into the centre, then Turner would deal with it. But I think the only time really you would expect a player to be covering that angle a bit more is on the other side, where a player like Mahrez is cutting in, because you know that Mahrez is going to bend it. You know that Mahrez has got the ability to do it. So then you're going to be in that position, but you just don't expect it from Ake. But yeah, you've got to say fair play from me.
I think I agree. I don't want to jump on his back too much, because he's sort of caught in two minds, isn't he? Like, does he go and become that extra man to stop him from coming in on his right? Or does he protect that space on the edge of the box, which probably someone with more ability is going to be there waiting to strike the ball? So the only thing is, you've got to do one or another. You can't just leave yourself in no man's land. But I think I'm leaning towards more of your point of view on this one. It's one of those goals where it's a good goal. Turner won't going to save it. No keeper is saving that. It's just a great finish. It's a shame. City took their chance where where we didn't with the ones that we were given. So it was a little bit of a stalemate in that respect, but City just slightly edge it. So it's just one of them. It's kind of just fair enough. Do you think that these links with Lokonga away could come to fruition? I've seen that Monaco are sniffing around him. I know I'm sort of going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I'm just interested, while we're talking about Lokonga, whether you think that could be something that Arsenal will be interested in, or do you think that they're going to wait till the summer before they make a decision on whether a loan or something like that would be more suitable?
Well, going off what I said before about his mentality, he does seem like the sort of player that is only really interested in his own minutes and his own development. It doesn't seem like he's like a team player in the sense that he's happy to sit on the bench to then contribute from the bench. Sorry, cold in that. Yeah, I can actually see that happening. I can see him maybe going for a loan just because he really wants to get the minutes and be back on the football pitch, which I guess every football player wants to be playing football. But I think Arsenal and Arteta would be reluctant to send him on loan at this time of the season, just because of how light we are in that area. There was rumours of an El Neni injury not long ago as well, so. I think if you do get rid of Lokonga and you have an El Neni injury, then you've literally just got Partey and Xhaka, and Partey got injured during the Man City game, so we would be left without no one really. You could maybe I've seen rumours of Ben White's been practicing defensive mids in case he's needed to go there, and Tomiyasu cover on the right back position, but. We don't want to be messing about and trialing players in positions they've never played at this stage of the season when every single game could be a title decider potentially. So I feel like it would be a bad decision although he's performed poorly, it would be a bad decision to be loaning him out because he can make a contribution, especially in like the Europa League, because we've still got quite a few games to play in there. I know we're going to be in the latter stages of that, so we're going to be playing some bigger teams, but if we get a final wrapped up, it's still two legs in the Europa League. For example, if we have a game, a fixture wrapped up in the first leg, then he could maybe be used for some minutes in the second leg. I don't know if it's still two legs or not.
I'm not too sure on that one, if I'm honest. The format seems to change all the time. I can never keep up with it.
We'll be in the Champions League next year, so we'll know what the format is for that. Yeah. But fingers crossed. But to be honest, even Roy Keane, he was saying on the commentary on Friday night, he's going... someone said, hopefully Arsenal will be in the Champions League next season. And he was saying, it's like, what you on about? Don't be stupid. Of course they're going to be in the Champions League. That was an awful Irish accent, by the way. But he basically just ridiculed the other commentator, saying, of course Arsenal are going to be in the Champions League, which I guess at the start of this season, when you think about things retrospectively, that was our aim. That was our ambition. We wanted to get into the Champions League, and it does look like we're going to achieve that. So, if all else fails and we do end up, falling to second or third this season, it will be disappointing, but you've got to remember we came fifth last season. We didn't even make the Champions League spot. So if we're in the Champions League next season, then that is still progression.
Yeah, exactly. Just going back to Lokonga slightly, because I just want to end it on a positive note with Lokonga discussion. I do think he came into the game a lot more. Once that was the first 10-15 minutes of cobwebs blew off. I do think he showed a lot more of what he can do, and he was moving the ball quite nicely. So I still see it there, if you know what I mean. There's something there. We just need to harness it in the right way. So yeah, I'm just hopeful that we can do that. I like you said, I don't think loaning him out now would be the right decision. We haven't got the players to be able to facilitate that. The only way that a move would make sense is if someone came and smacked 40 million on the table or something like that. I think that the rumor was 8 million from Monaco, which is laughable, really. So there's no chance. We need to keep him in the team and maybe make a decision in the summer. But I still see something there. It's just I think we need to use him in the right way, surrounded by the right players. Maybe it's too much of a rotation sticking Vieira in alongside him. He needs to play with maybe a Partey and an Odegaard alongside him to learn and have better protection. But I guess this is something we'll have to wait and see.
Do you know what he reminds me of? Sorry to interrupt. Do you know what Lokonga this season reminds me of? It kind of has... it reminds me of Tavares last season, where he has these little glimpses of really good quality, but every so often, whenever he gets thrown back into the team after he's had a spell out, he just has a bit of a calamitous performance. So I don't know, maybe he needs to do like what Tavares has done and go on loan and be able to get some full-time minutes and really, polish his game to be able to be a first-team starter. But I know what you're saying.
Especially if we get Champions League as well, because we're not going to have the luxury of playing the European minnows, with all respect. A Champions League group stage tends to involve 4 solid, good teams that on their day can beat anyone. So it's going to limit his game time even more. So maybe a loan does make perfect sense, but as you mentioned with Tavares, he's gone and he's performing pretty well. That's only going to increase his value, and potentially maybe we decide to cash in and profit and reinvest elsewhere in the squad, because you probably argue the fact that Tavares has never really been an Arteta type player, is he? He's an attacking fullback. That's almost exactly what we don't want. He's a wing back, isn't he?
So I think the thing with Tavares though is he was quite a low risk signing. He came in for a low fee. He's a young player, and I feel like we've made sometimes when you take these punts on young players from different leagues, sometimes they're not going to work. But if they are for a low price, then it's low risk, and potentially send them out alone if they have a good season. Then you can recuperate some of that money back. And not every single player that you try and recruit is going to be an absolute gem in the rough, so to speak. So I think we might have got it wrong with Tavares, just because you can't see him making a way back into this team above like the likes of Zinchenko, with how incredible Zinchenko's been playing, well, all season, but most notably recently, and the impact that he makes when he turns into that third midfielder when he plays that inverted role. There's not a chance in hell someone like Tavares would be able to perform that role to the same standard that Zinchenko would. So it's just another example of Arteta and how he knows which players aren't good for us, so then he filters them out and brings someone else in. He's got this vision, he's stuck to it, and we're top of the league, so it's obviously paying off. Yeah.
Okay, so before we sort of summarise the game as a whole, one other little thing I just thought I'd like to mention is around Martinelli's impact that he made off the bench. Sitting in the stands, it looked as if he's starting to find that little bit of form back again. I know we've mentioned it previously that he started to look a little bit leggy and putting not the usual performances we've seen from Martinelli, which is to be expected. He's a young lad, but what did you think of his little cameo today? For me, it looks really, really promising.
Well, to me, it looked like someone who had seen for the first time in a long time that his position is under threat by someone who's got real potential quality in Trossard. with how well Trossard played at the end of the last game in the United game, and Martinelli having a bit of a poor performance in that game, and then how well Trossard performed at the start of this game, it really did seem like Martinelli came on with a point to prove, which is great. This is what you want from your attacking players. You want them to be reinvigorated, to want to contribute into making us, well, helping us score and helping us attack. So, yeah, it really did look like, because he was trying to take players on, he was trying to make things happen, making the game tick. And these are things which we love about Martinelli, which he recently hasn't been doing, because I don't know if he's looked tired or if he is just felt like, this is my position now, so I can do what I want, kind of thing. But yeah, he definitely looks like he's trying to. He's like that young 18, 19-year-old Martinelli again, where he's really trying to perform. So yeah, it's really great to see, and I was happy with his performance when he came on.
Yeah, I think of the main positives from this game, I think that's one of them, because a reinvigorated Martinelli could be huge, especially with Saka maybe looking a bit fatigued as well. We need at least one of them firing, to go alongside Eddie and to get these goals. So I think that could be huge. The fact that Trossard's pushing him for places as well is huge. I think I know we said this a couple of podcasts ago, and we were talking about the Trossard signing, and initially I was a little bit like, ooh, he doesn't seem to give me that same buzz as like a Mudryk would have done, but I'm eating my words already slightly, because the impact he's made in these two games already is massive. So I think he's going to be really big for the latter stages of the Premier League. So that really is a big positive. So as we summarise, I've seen a lot of people the pre and post game talking about this fixture as like a real psychological battle. And whoever comes off worse is going to have a bit of a blow for the upcoming Premier League games. So obviously we've still got to play home and away. In my opinion, I think we went toe-to-toe with Man City. I think it was a very close game. I think, Man City shaded it, especially in that second half. We rotated a lot more than them. So realistically, I don't think we've been dealt any blow whatsoever. I think, if anything, there's positives to come out of this game. And I'm not really devastated at all. We've also got the caveat of we've now got less games to play for the Premier League. I know a lot of people will be like, you're clutching at straws there. Everyone wants to win the FA Cup. Yeah, I would have liked that, but we haven't, and there's a positive that has come from that. So what are your overall thoughts from the loss? Are you sort of optimistic around it still?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I don't think the Arteta's going to be too down about it. I think Arteta and Pep Guardiola, they're both psychological powerhouses, aren't they? They love to play the psychological game, but I don't think either of them are going to feel like they one-up them, because even in the post-match conference with Pep, he didn't really give off the impression that they were the better team either. He kind of said we were two even teams. We kind of cancelled each other out, and we just took our one chance that we had, and Arsenal didn't take any of theirs. And that was pretty much all it was. There wasn't any dominance from either side. So to go away from home to a Man City team which has all of this quality and wealth and depth, to be able to go toe-to-toe and not really look dominated at all the whole game, it really is encouraging, and it gives me massive confidence going into the game when we play them, especially when we play them at home. I feel like we are going to be really up for that game. And let's not forget as well, we actually did have a few changes. Like those 45 minutes of this game where we had Holding on the pitch, we had Lokonga on the pitch, not our first starting lineup. We had Trossard. I know how good he's been, but a reinvigorated Martinelli is better than a Trossard, so to speak. So in my opinion, we had Vieira play. We didn't have Odegaard play the game, and we went toe to toe and we nullified each other. So it gives me massive encouragement when we do have our best players playing, and we're playing at home, and we're playing in a competition which, let's face it, we want to win. We're really in a good position to win the league, and it's the first time we've been in this position in just under 20 years. So just over, I don't know, I can't do maths, but yeah, we're in this position for the first time in a long time, and we've won so many FA Cups. I do love winning the FA Cup, but you know, if Man City win the FA Cup this season, then the team that's won the FA Cup the most times in history is still Arsenal. So, you know,
yes, that's a real good point, actually. So, not score predictions. How many points do you think we will take? Bearing in mind this game and this psychological battle and how we've come out the other end, what do you think? How many points do you think we'll take from the home and away fixture?
I think if we can take 4 points from the 2 games, then I think we will win the league. I think just based off that, 4 points from Man City, we would win the league. But I think we'll win at home. I genuinely think we will win at home. And then I think away, I don't think we'll win away. I think it will either be a draw or a loss away. So I'm going to be optimistic because I'm usually quite pessimistic in my predictions. So I'm going to say 4 points, a home win and away draw. What about you?
Yeah. It's a tough one to predict, but yeah, like you say, if we can get a win, you know, whether it's home or away, whatever, if we can get 3 points from that, I think we've nullified it, and we've cancelled each other out. We're winning our other games. They're not winning as many of their other games. If we can keep this form going up until May, then like you say, we're going to be in with a good shout. So
yeah. Also, you know, sorry, it's also important to remember, even if we get 2 draws in those games, then we have completely nullified them as well. I know there might be other teams that are catching us by that point, or potentially gaining points on us. But if we were to get 2 draws in the 2 fixtures against Man City, that really isn't a bad result either, because, you know, it stops them from getting points. And yeah, if it is a 2-horse race at that point and we get 2 draws, then I'll also be happy. Yeah,
no, I agree. Okay, so I think that's pretty much about it for the game. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or that we may have missed before we move on to the juicy transfer talk that's doing the rounds?
No, the only thing that I would say from the game, which is a bit of a funny thing to watch on TV, is when Haaland went down and he had a head injury, all you could hear for the whole time he was down was the Arsenal fans. And I know we've talked about this already, but it's just amazing that, you know, we're building atmospheres in stadiums which aren't even ours. And that was a funny little thing to see, that Haaland's down injured and we're building the atmosphere.
No, you're quite right. The away fans were honestly amazing, and I had the biggest fear of missing out ever. I was just sort of sat in my seat like, I really want to join in. But yeah, it was hard. But they
should have just gone over there.
I wish I could. I think there was a few people sat around me starting to get a little bit like, Is this guy a City fan? But to be honest, there were a fair few Arsenal fans in the home section. Like,
was it when you were singing the Saliba chant in the Man City?
Yeah, that gave it away slightly. Right, let's go into transfer talk then, because there's obviously a really big one doing the rounds at the minute, and that is focused around Moises Caicedo of Brighton. There were confirmation from big journalists that a 60 million bid was lodged and practically immediately rejected. So first, before we get into the financial elements of it, what are your thoughts on Caicedo as a player? Do you think he suits our team? Do you think he's going to help elevate us and provide strength for the Premier League campaign?
Well, as we've echoed quite a lot today, we really have a lack of depth in that middle of the park position, and he looks like the perfect sort of signing to be able to come in there. He's a young player. He's already Premier League proven. He's coming from a decent Brighton team, and they always play better when he's in the team. So I would be really happy for him to come in. And for me, he would already be a notch above Lokonga in that position. So I'd be really happy to see him come to the side. And potentially, if Partey gets injured, or if we do need an understudy, then he'll be able to fit right in my opinion. But the only thing that I would say to that is, as you're saying about the price, I do think the reason for getting him instead of waiting for the summer to get maybe a Declan Rice is that he should be the cheaper option. Now, with Brighton rejecting a £60 million bid, that just worries me a little bit, because I don't think he's worth 60 million, to be honest. So I don't think he's worth much more than that as well. So if we're able to wait for the summer and maybe get Rice, I don't know if I'd just hold on and do that instead, because I wouldn't be paying more than £60 million for Caicedo.
I've seen strong journalists come out and say, though, that whether we get Caicedo now or in the summer, Rice is still on the table. Like, we're still interested in Rice. This isn't a case of one or the other. It's a case of they want both. That to me suggests that they see Caicedo as a potential to play in that Xhaka number 8 role. Because I have watched a few statistical breakdowns of his previous games for Brighton, and he does operate in that part of the field more often than you associate him with, I think. He's not got on the score sheet as much as maybe Xhaka has this season, but he's playing in a Brighton team, let's not forget. So that's no disrespect to Brighton, but maybe this is in their thoughts, because having a Declan Rice and a Caicedo, what's the number one thing that Arteta loves in players? Well, it's versatility. So I think Rice could play at a number 8 as well as a number 6, and vice versa with Caicedo. So having these two players in our ranks alongside Xhaka and Partey is pretty strong, isn't it? There's always an option there, no matter what injuries we've got. So that is interesting, but the price, like you say, the price tags being associated with Caicedo, they're getting a bit ridiculous, aren't they? 60 million, I was already a bit wary of that. Never mind the 80 million I think Brighton actually want for him. But these numbers have changed almost on a daily basis, and at first it was 100, then it was 70, then it was 80, then it's 90. Like, it's getting a little bit silly now, and I just hope that we don't have another one of these Pepe-like situations where we go into a sign-in full force, not really valuing the player correctly, and then we've got someone with an inflated price tag playing for us that's not replicating that those numbers into performances.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something that we might have avoided with the whole Mudryk saga, the whole Pepe situation. I think his price was definitely overinflated, even though he does look like he will become a quality player. But I think on reflection, if the trade-off for not signing Mudryk in this January transfer window was getting the likes of Trossard, Kiwior, and then potentially Caicedo as well, I think in terms of depth, that is way smarter business than just spunking 100 million on a wide forward. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's so much more efficient to be able to cover those areas whilst we already have this amazing first 11. So you don't want to be spending all of your money on one player, whereas you could get 3 who are great cover, and we've got cover now for a defender, a attacker, and potentially a midfielder as well. So Edu's been really smart in his recruitment here, and if we do get Caicedo, then we should have enough cover to be able to get us over the line.
Yeah, and that is the one position that I don't think we can afford to go into this second half of the season without. Maybe it's a case of Caicedo is worth 60 million, but because of the fact that it's mid-season, Brighton want to be compensated for that? Can they get a player in time? How long have we got left of the transfer window? What, two days? So it's limited time for them to really find a replacement. If they don't find a replacement, they're going into the second half of the season, a player down, one of their key players down. So they're going to want to be compensated, and if that means paying 20 million more, then that's the risk that we have to take. Could you wait till the summer and get him for 60? Probably, yeah. But is it worth doing that for 20 million and potentially missing out on the Premier League title? Probably not. So it's a frustrating position to be in, but one that I think we're going to have to be forced into doing. Yeah,
absolutely, completely agree.
Yeah, so that's obviously the main link that we've got floating around. We've got 2 days left, like I've just said, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. The only other link we've got is around Fresneda. We've talked about this on previous podcasts. A young 18-year-old right back from the Spanish league, with reports of Suarez nearing closer to Fulham. This one makes a little bit of sense, but I think he's been put in a position where he needs to decide whether he comes to Arsenal or whether he goes to Dortmund. I've seen conflicting reports. Some say that Arsenal are leading the race. Some say that Dortmund are leading the race. So it's an interesting one, but I think whatever happens in this situation, Real Valladolid want him back on loan for the remainder of the season. And I think it makes a lot of sense for Arsenal because we don't really need Suarez in the team, do we? So the fact that we're getting rid of him on loan, taking 100k off a week off our books, signing a player for the future, it makes perfect sense. But we'll have to wait and see whether he chooses us or Dortmund.
Yeah, it seems like a sensible signing. It's one in, one out, really, isn't it? It's getting rid of an aging player and bringing in a young, promising player. And we don't really need to cover too much of the minute because we've got White and Tomiyasu. But yeah, definitely one for the future.
Yeah. Have I missed anybody else transfer-wise? I think that's about it.
No, the only thing that we could say is we've not yet seen anything from Kiwior, so it'd be interesting to see how he performs because we've signed him now. So be interested to see how he does perform in his first game, and will that be against Everton in our next match? Probably not, but yeah. he might come on and make a cameo appearance. So that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think he's going to need a bit of integrating into the squad. He's not the sort of player that we want to be rushing in. Centre back, you make an error, it's huge, isn't it? Up top, if you're a forward and you make a little error and you miss an easy chance, it's easily brushed under the carpet. So I think we need to bed him in nicely. I don't know whether he speaks English yet, so maybe that's another aspect that we need to just take our time with that one. But it is a huge boost to our team. Nonetheless, I'm glad that we've strengthened in centre back, because one injury to any of our centre backs, and we're incredibly weaker. So it's certainly a smart one.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think that is about it for today's podcast. Have you got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we've pretty much. I'm not sure how we got over an hour, really, with talking about a loss to Man City. But that just shows how much we can ramble about the Arsenal, doesn't it? So,
yeah, this is the Arsenal ramble after all. Okay, guys. So, thank you for listening. Really appreciate you tuning in. Join us again for I think we'll do a preview podcast for the Everton game. So join us for that. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys.
Take care.